Hello and welcome to day 2 of CanWeek. Today, as I mentioned yesterday, we're going to be talking about The Back of the Turtle by Thomas King. So on this channel, I have already talked about 2 of his books. I read Medicine River and I also talked about The Inconvenient Indian. So, third one. Before we talk about the book, I do want to talk about the fact that the reason I have this in hardcover is because I bought it when he came to my city for like the book tour signing reading situation. Right, so like look at me go, signed. And yet, when did this come out? Like September 2014? Read it this year, so you know, that's fine. And so, okay, Thomas King, familiar with him as a person and the 2 books that I had written, was not prepared for him in person. Oh my god. Okay, so this man, individual person, is like 7 feet tall, I'm pretty sure. I think he's 7 feet tall. He's like 70 years old, and oh my goodness, he doesn't look that old or act that old. What does that mean? He is the grumpiest person, and I just identified with that a lot. Like, I really appreciated that, and he just gave 0 fucks. He is also hilarious, okay? So funny. And what I really appreciated about the reading that he did was he was very specific in the passages that he read, because there are quite a few main characters, there's multiple narrators, and he wanted to make sure that you knew the voice of each character, because that was something that he said was really important to him in his like writing process. Also, fun facts, person on the cover, that's his wife. So she was lovely as well. She was amazing. They're great. To get through the summary of the book, it starts with Gabriel, who has returned to Smoke River Reserve, which is a fictionalized place, post an environmental disaster that's happened and has like a bunch of people from the community have died. It's kind of deserted now. And then he meets Mara, who is another person who used to live on the reserve, and she left and now she's come back. There's Sonny, who is a child who lives there. There's also Nicholas Crisp, who is a guy who used to run a motel, I think. And then, so those are all the people that are in Smoke River. And then the one person who's in Toronto is Dorian Gray, who is the CEO of a huge company. And that's the company where Gabriel mysteriously quit and disappeared from. The storytelling in this book is incredible. And I think that's kind of what he's known for, right? He wrote The Truth About Stories. Comparing it to the first book that he wrote, Medicine River, like especially like this book, it's amazing in terms of how the story is woven together. This is a hefty book. I think it's almost like, is it almost 700 or almost 500 pages? It's like 500 pages. And I didn't hate that it was that long, but I also wouldn't have been mad if it was shorter. And it's a very character-driven book. Like, there is definitely a plot that is happening, but there is a lot of time spent on character development. This book is saying a lot of things, which is how we're gonna begin to unpack it a little bit. Firstly, again, as I said, characters all have very strong voices. There's lots of specific things that they're all saying in terms of their own like life experiences. As always, his books are very funny, right? And it deals with things in a humorous way, yet also like it kind of slaps you in the face a bit. Something else that is taken straight from the cover jacket is it says that Thomas King in this book weaves together and plays with themes around Native and Christian mythology. Okay, so some of that is quite like obvious symbolism, but something that you may know about me is that I am not a literature student. I haven't taken an English class since grade 12. Passed that class with flying colors, by the way, just saying. But so I haven't taken any kind of literature analysis in like the university level, because I'm studying other things, don't have time, so I have my own kind of analysis from what I am studying, political science, gender studies, but I don't have the same kind of like literature kind of like training, which you obviously don't need to read books, but every once in a while I'll come across a book or a text where I feel like I don't quite have access to the full breadth of the story because I don't have the same tools that people who are like studying literature have. And I feel like this is one of those books. Like, I feel like there were things that I was definitely missing from the story, and his books like from my experience, have always been quite political, and this one is specifically having to do like with the environment, obviously. And this came across like especially in his reading when he was like talking about the book. So you have Dorian Gray, who's the CEO of this big company that's just like fucking with the environment, doesn't care, only about making money. Thomas King was talking about how in the book it's obvious that that's what's going on with this frame of mind of the CEOs in Toronto and the concrete soulless buildings, that kind of thing. But he's also saying that like a lot of people who aren't in that position where they're like so clearly benefiting off destroying the environment just still don't take action, right? So like T. King had a lot of despair going on about the way that we treat the environment. I don't blame him. I feel the same. But what I do like about Dorian Gray is that he wasn't like an obvious villain, right? Like it's not set up that way necessarily, where like everyone in Smoke River is like the innocent victims and he's like the evil villain. It's not, it's much more complex than that. And it's also not that like Dorian Gray is just like, fuck the environment. You know what I mean? Like it's a character that he really played with. In terms of the way that he like revealed those kind of like capitalist tendencies. Like for instance, whenever Dorian Gray was having like issues of his own, living his own life, his like, what made him feel good was like spending money and like status and stuff. But I like that it wasn't like so obvious, and that it was like, it made you think about it more. Also, what I like about this book is that it humanizes environmental disaster, because I'm one of those people who I get so overwhelmed with despair, ecological despair, whenever we talk about the environment and like all the shit that's happening, that I shut down because I can't process it, because I am in so much despair. And so it's not that I'm trying to disconnect from it, but it's like I cannot go there. So I liked that this book helped me like ease into it a bit without feeling like overwhelmed with like, we're all gonna die kind of, you know what I mean? That was Back the Turtle by Thomas King. As I've said, there's the other two books that I've talked about that will be linked. And I will see you tomorrow for day 3 of CanWeek, when we talk about This One Summer by Jillian and Mariko Tamaki.